On October 26, 1911, in New Orleans, Louisiana, a generation-defining legend was born. Her name was Mahalia Jackson. According to Biography.com, she grew up in a Pitt Street shack and started singing at the age of 4 at Mount Moriah Baptist Church. She was brought up in a strict religious environment and confined her singing to the church choir. At age 16, she moved to Chicago and joined the Greater Salem Baptist Church. She refused to sing any other songs other than religious ones or ones she found appropriate. As her singing career grew and she started singing professionally, she added an I to her name, making her what she is known today, Mahalia. Jackson was greatly influenced by artists such as Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey. Gospel composer Thomas A. Dorsey and Mahalia started performing all around the United States. Britannica.com states that before her career really skyrocketed, she worked a number of jobs such as a laundress, a beautician, and a flower shop owner. In 1947, Mahalia came out with the song Move Up a Little Higher, which later became the highest-selling gospel single in history. 8 of her records sold more than 1 million copies each. Her audience, being very racially unified, helped her reach the stage at Carnegie Hall on October 4, 1950. She also sang at President Kennedy's inauguration in 1961. Mahalia not only sang gospel, but she was also a major activist in the civil rights movement. In 1963, she sang "I've Been Buked and I've Been Scorned" at the March on Washington as per request of Martin Luther King Jr. She was always right by his side in the hostile South and was very devoted to King and his work. At the I Have a Dream speech, she shouted, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. She sang one of his favorites, "Take My Hand, Precious Lord," at his funeral. She also went on to publish the book Moving On Up, her autobiography, in 1966. Mahalia continued to sing for years after King's death. Many in the Black community continued to listen to her reassuring voice over the radio waves. This included a little girl in Chicago named Sarita. From about 1970, at the age of 3, Sarita would try to sing like Mahalia. In her own words, she says,
"I remember the day I was sitting at our radio in the living room, and back then the radio was a piece of furniture. I mean, you could sit things on top of it because it was long and had these speakers on either side."
During her later years, she began developing a number of health issues, causing her to die of a heart attack on January 27, 1972. Sarita says,
And I remember sitting in front of that radio listening to Mahalia Jackson when a newscaster broke in the middle of one of her songs with an announcement that Mahalia Jackson had just died. And I was completely devastated. I don't even know that I was school age at that time, but this was the first death that I had experienced, and it was somebody whom I'd never met, but that I felt really close to. And I remember running to my grandmother, crying and telling her that Mahalia was gone. Mahalia, she wasn't born in Chicago, but she had some kind of roots in Chicago because one of the funerals, I believe she had more than one, was in Chicago. And my grandmother took me to the funeral of Mahalia Jackson. And I remember standing in line. It was a long, long line outside, waiting to get in to view her in the casket. And it was a little overwhelming because it was just so many people and had to stand in line for so long.
"How old were you?"
I don't think I was school age. I have to look at the year that she died. I might have been in kindergarten. I don't remember being in kindergarten. If I was in school, it wasn't more than kindergarten. And I remember lots of preachers with booming voices speaking. There were, a number, and I didn't know who they were at the time, but they were pretty prominent politicians and ministers at the funeral, and the only thing I don't remember anything about the service. The only thing I remember is when I got up to the casket, because they covered her with a clear plastic so that no one could touch her. And I just remember she looked so beautiful, even in the casket with her eyes closed, as she did when I would see her like on TV. And that's all I remember.
It would seem that based on the story of Mahalia's life and my mom's account with her experience with Mahalia, that her truth is this: Mahalia could transcend age to deliver healing in a time of despair as well as hope for a new generation. She was born to fulfill this purpose.